Shut this whole thing down right now!
Officers, here are the permits for the event.
They are making way too much noise!
Don't worry, everything is going to be fine.
The late afternoon sun cast a warm, golden glow across Maple Ridge Drive, where white roses, soft string lights, and elegant ivory decorations transformed a quiet, suburban street into a picture-perfect wedding venue. Neighbors paused on their evening walks, smiling as gentle violin music drifted through the air. Every chair was carefully arranged, every flower placed with purpose, and every guest carried the excitement of witnessing two lives become one. Zara Brooks stood beneath a canopy of fresh white blooms, taking a slow breath as her bridesmaids adjusted the final details of her gown. She looked radiant, but what made her unforgettable wasn't the dress. It was the calm confidence in her smile, the kind that came from years of overcoming obstacles with grace instead of bitterness across the lawn. Devin Williams greeted family members with warm handshakes and heartfelt hugs. His tailored tuxedo reflected quiet elegance rather than wealth, and his respectful manner instantly put everyone around him at ease. Children laughed as 8-year-old flower girl Amara proudly practiced tossing petals along the aisle. Nearby, Devin's grandmother smiled from the front row, while several black women from the community arranged homemade dessert beside professionally catered dishes. Doctors, teachers, veterans, police officers, nurses, small business owners, and lifelong friends filled the guest list. The celebration reflected the very best of America. People from different backgrounds gathered together because love had brought them to the same place. Among the guests stood Captain Renee Carter, a respected black woman who had served with the local police department for nearly 20 years. Wearing a simple navy dress instead of her uniform, she blended quietly into the crowd, hoping to spend one afternoon simply celebrating. Close friends, many younger officers, admired her leadership because she believed that true policing was built on respect, patience, and protecting every family equally, regardless of race or neighborhood. Just as the wedding coordinator prepared to begin, seating the final guests, the peaceful atmosphere shifted. The front door of the neighboring house swung open with force. Margaret Whitmore marched across her perfectly trimmed lawn, her expensive heels striking the pavement. With sharp determination, her eyes scanned the wedding, as though every smiling face personally offended her. "What exactly do you people think you're doing?" she shouted, her voice cutting through the music like broken glass. Conversation stopped instantly. Children turned toward the unexpected commotion, while several elderly guests exchanged concerned glances. Devin calmly stepped forward before anyone else could react. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he said politely. "I'm Devin. If there's something bothering you, I'd be happy to talk." Margaret ignored his extended courtesy. "This neighborhood used to be peaceful," she snapped. "Now my entire street has been taken over." Zara gently placed a reassuring hand on Devin's arm, silently encouraging him to remain calm. "We have all the required permits," Devin replied respectfully. "We'll be finished before the evening quiet hours. We truly don't want to inconvenience anyone. I don't care about your permits," Margaret answered. "People like you always think the rules don't apply." A heavy silence settled over the gathering. Several guests lowered their heads, not because they were ashamed, but because the accusation felt painfully familiar. Captain Renee Carter watched carefully from the crowd, recognizing the tension that often developed long before police officers ever arrived. She quietly reminded a few younger relatives not to respond. Emotionally the strongest person in the room, she whispered, is usually the one who stays calm. Amara, still clutching her basket of flower petals, looked up at Margaret with innocent confusion. "Ma'am," the little girl asked softly, "did we do something wrong?" For a brief second, the entire street seemed to hold its breath. Margaret looked directly at the child before turning away. Without answering, Devin slowly knelt beside Amara. "No, sweetheart," he said with a gentle smile. "Sometimes people make decisions before they know someone's heart. That doesn't change who you are." His words reached far beyond the little girl. Parents quietly squeezed their children's hands. Several guests wiped away tears. Across the street, neighbors had already begun recording on their phones, uncertain whether they were witnessing a misunderstanding or something much deeper. Margaret pulled out her phone and began filming the wedding herself. "This is exactly what's wrong with our community," she declared loudly into the camera. "Nobody asked the neighbors if we wanted this." Captain Carter finally stepped forward, her voice steady and professional. "Ma'am, everyone here wants today to remain peaceful. Let's treat one another with the same respect. We'd hope to receive ourselves. Margaret barely looked at her. Oh, now I've got another lecture. Captain Carter didn't raise her voice. In my years serving this community, I've learned that respect is never a weakness. It protects people long before a badge ever has. Instead of calming the situation, Margaret's frustration only intensified. She unlocked her phone again, dialed 911, and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. I need officers at Maple Ridge Drive immediately. There's a disturbance and illegal gathering, and this situation is getting out of control. Around the wedding venue, conversations faded into complete silence, as distant sirens had not yet appeared, but every guest understood that the celebration they had waited months to share had suddenly become something far greater than a wedding. Less than 6 minutes later, the distant sound of sirens echoed through Maple Ridge Drive. The soft melody of the string quartet faded as 2 patrol vehicles rolled slowly onto the quiet residential street. Their emergency lights flashed briefly before being switched off, signaling that the officers intended to assess the situation calmly rather than escalate it. Officer Daniel Martinez stepped out first, followed by Officer Sofia Rodriguez. Both had spent years serving communities across the city, and both understood that every emergency call deserved facts. Before conclusions, they exchanged a quick glance. Taking in the elegant wedding decorations, smiling children, professionally parked vehicles, and neatly arranged seating, nothing before them resembled the chaos described in the dispatch report. Margaret hurried toward them before they had taken more than a few steps. "Officers, thank goodness you're here," she exclaimed dramatically. "This entire neighborhood has been taken over. They're disturbing the peace, blocking the street, and making everyone feel unsafe." Officer Martinez nodded politely. "Ma'am, we'll speak with everyone involved before making any decisions." "They've been causing problems all afternoon," Margaret insisted. "You need to shut this wedding down before things get worse." Officer Rodriguez calmly surveyed the surroundings. The traffic lane remained open. Emergency access was clear. Music played at a respectful volume, and guests stood quietly waiting rather than arguing. Years of experience had taught her that appearances could sometimes be misleading, but professionalism required careful observation instead of assumptions. Devon walked toward the officers with slow, respectful steps, keeping his hands visible. "Good afternoon, officers. My name is Devon Williams. Thank you for responding. I know your job isn't easy." Officer Martinez offered a courteous handshake. "Thank you, sir. We'd like to understand what's happening from everyone's perspective." "Of course," Devon replied. "Our family has secured every permit required by the city. Parking attendants have followed neighborhood guidelines, and we've asked our musicians to remain well below local noise limits." Without hesitation, he handed Officer Rodriguez a neatly organized folder containing permits, insurance documents, event approvals, and neighborhood notifications. Officer Rodriguez smiled slightly. "I appreciate how organized this is." Behind them, several guests quietly resumed comforting nervous children. Zara noticed Amara still holding her flower basket tightly. The little girl whispered, "Are they here because of us?" Captain Renee Carter knelt beside her. "No, sweetheart," she answered gently. "Police officers are here because someone asked for help. Good officers don't choose sides. They look for the truth." Amara nodded slowly. "My mom says police are supposed to protect everybody." Captain Carter smiled warmly. "Your mom is absolutely right." Nearby, several younger guests overheard the conversation. The simple exchange reminded everyone why trust between communities and law enforcement mattered so deeply. Officer Martinez reviewed the permits carefully. "Everything appears current." He observed Officer Rodriguez check the event map. "Parking is compliant." The catering supervisor approached respectfully. "Our service trucks have remained in designated loading areas since we arrived," a professional violinist quietly added. "We've monitored our sound levels throughout the afternoon." Officer Martinez used his department-issued sound meter. 61 decibels, he announced. Officer Rodriguez compared the reading with city regulations. "Weekend daytime limit is 75. Margaret folded her arms. "That machine doesn't matter. Listen to all these people. The ordinance is based on measurable standards." Officer Rodriguez explained calmly. "Our responsibility is to apply those standards fairly." Margaret's frustration grew. "So now you're taking their side?" Officer Martinez answered without changing his tone. "We're not taking anyone's side, ma'am. We're following the law." Several neighbors, who had gathered across the street, quietly exchanged glances. Some had expected the officers to immediately order the wedding to stop. Instead, they watched a professional investigation unfold, exactly as public service was intended. One elderly resident stepped forward. "I've lived here 27 years, he said. "This wedding has been one of the most respectful events I've ever seen." Another neighbor nodded. "The families even delivered notices letting everyone know about today's ceremony." Margaret looked around in disbelief as support for her position began to disappear. She raised her phone again, live streaming every second. Everyone watching, she declared, "Look what our neighborhood has come to." Within moments, comments flooded her screen. Several viewers questioned why the wedding looked peaceful. Others asked why children and elderly relatives appeared frightened. Across the reception area, 16-year-old Destiny quietly continued her own live stream. "I'm recording everything exactly as it happens," she told her growing audience. "People deserve to see the whole story, not just one version." Her viewers climbed steadily as comments encouraged everyone to remain respectful and allow the officers to do their jobs. Captain Carter watched the interaction with quiet pride. "This," she said softly to Zara, "is what real policing should look like: patience." Listening facts before judgment, Zara managed a grateful smile, despite the anxiety in her eyes. "I just wanted today to be about love." "It still can be," Captain Carter replied. "Sometimes the hardest moments reveal the strongest character." Officer Rodriguez returned the permit folder to Devon. "Everything we've reviewed so far appears to comply with city regulations." Before Devon could respond, Margaret stepped between them once again. "You've barely investigated anything. Look at them. Doesn't any of this seem suspicious to you?" Officer Martinez remained composed. "Suspicion alone isn't evidence, ma'am." Those words settled over the gathering with quiet weight. Several guests exchanged appreciative glances, recognizing that fairness required facts rather than assumptions. As Officer Rodriguez looked back toward Devon, something caught her attention. A platinum cufflink reflected the afternoon sunlight, revealing an engraved city seal she had seen many times before during official municipal ceremonies. She looked at Devon again, studying his calm expression more carefully, as a faint look of recognition crossed her face, while Margaret continued speaking with complete confidence, unaware that the next few moments were about to change everything. Officer Sofia Rodriguez took one careful step forward, her eyes fixed on the platinum cufflink that reflected the afternoon sunlight. The engraved city seal was unmistakable. She had seen it countless times during city council meetings, police award ceremonies, and community leadership events. For a brief moment, she said nothing. Then she looked directly at Devon's face, and recognition settled in. Her posture immediately changed. "Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor," she said respectfully. The words seemed to silence the entire street. The violinist stopped playing. Conversations faded into complete stillness. Even Margaret's livestream audience exploded with questions, as thousands of viewers tried to understand what had just happened. Margaret blinked repeatedly. What did you just call him?" Officer Martinez looked at Devon before offering a respectful nod of his own. "Good afternoon, Mayor Williams." Devon smiled politely. "Good afternoon, officers. Thank you both for handling this situation with professionalism." Margaret stared in disbelief. This can't be right." Devon calmly reached into the inside pocket of his tuxedo jacket and presented his official city identification. Officer Rodriguez verified it only out of procedure, before handing it back with respect. "There was never any doubt, sir." Margaret's phone slowly lowered toward the ground. You're the mayor." Devon looked at her with the same calm expression he had worn since the confrontation began. "Yes, ma'am. My name is Devon Williams. I've had the privilege of serving this city for the past 4 years." News of the revelation spread through the growing crowd. Almost instantly, several neighbors exchanged embarrassed looks, realizing how quickly assumptions had replaced simple conversation. Officer Martinez addressed everyone gathered. "I'd like to make something clear. Our responsibility is not to judge people by appearances, assumptions, or accusations. Our responsibility is to investigate facts fairly and protect every member of this community equally." Captain Renee Carter smiled proudly. "That's exactly what good policing looks like." Several younger guests quietly applauded. Devin turned toward the officers. I also want to thank both of you for treating everyone here with dignity. You listened before reaching conclusions, and that's exactly what communities deserve from law enforcement. Officer Rodriguez nodded respectfully. Every family deserves the same protection under the law. Those words resonated deeply with many guests, especially the young children watching the entire exchange unfold. Amara tugged gently on Captain Carter's hand. So the police didn't come to stop our wedding. Captain Carter smiled warmly. No, sweetheart. They came to find the truth. The little girl's face brightened. My teacher says truth always wins. It usually does, Captain Carter replied. Especially when good people refuse to let fear speak louder than facts. Margaret struggled to find the right words. I didn't know who you were. Devin answered gently. Respect shouldn't depend on knowing someone's title. The sentence settled over the neighborhood with quiet power. You shouldn't need to discover that someone is the mayor before treating them or anyone else. With kindness, Margaret lowered her eyes. I was wrong. I appreciate you saying that. Devin replied, every community becomes stronger when people are willing to admit mistakes and choose to grow from them. Several neighbors who had remained silent throughout the confrontation slowly stepped closer. One elderly woman spoke first. We all have a responsibility to protect our neighborhood. Devin nodded, I agree. She continued softly, but protecting a neighborhood begins by protecting the dignity of the people who live in it. More heads nodded throughout the crowd. The atmosphere that had once been filled with tension slowly transformed into one of reflection. Officer Martinez smiled toward the wedding guests. From everything we've observed today, this ceremony has followed every city regulation. As far as we're concerned, this family should be allowed to celebrate one of the happiest days of their lives. A warm round of applause spread across Maple Ridge Drive. The musicians lifted their instruments once again. Children returned to scattering flower petals along the aisle. Guests smiled through emotional tears. Zara gently reached for Devin's hand. I've been waiting to marry you, she whispered. Devin smiled, and nothing was ever going to stop that. As the ceremony finally began, the same street that had witnessed misunderstanding became a reminder that character speaks louder than prejudice, patience is stronger than anger, and true leadership is measured not by power, but by humility. Officer Rodriguez and Officer Martinez quietly stepped back to give the family privacy, knowing they had fulfilled the highest purpose of their profession. Not simply enforcing the law, but strengthening public trust through fairness, integrity, and respect. Captain Renee Carter watched the couple exchange vows with quiet pride. She knew that every child standing there had witnessed something far more valuable than a wedding. They had witnessed courage without hatred, professionalism without bias, and the kind of leadership that inspires future generations to build stronger communities together. Some stories are remembered because of conflict. Others are remembered because they remind us that dignity has the power to transform conflict into understanding. This became one of those stories. If this story touched your heart, what do you believe was the most powerful moment? The officers choosing facts over assumptions, Captain Carter's quiet leadership, Devin's calm response, or the lesson that respect should never depend on someone's title. Share your thoughts in the comments, because your perspective may inspire someone else. And before you go, tell us what kind of powerful, uplifting story you'd like to watch next. Your ideas help shape future stories that celebrate courage, fairness, strong communities, and the belief that character will always outshine prejudice. If this message stayed with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next story, where ordinary people face extraordinary moments with integrity, compassion, and hope